Mr. George.
Hello.
Zaina, thank you to accept our invitation to be our guest for this session. Uh, um, Please introduce yourself and tell us about your valuable experiences on insurance and reinsurance, and if you uh, want, we can talk about any reinsurance cases or your experience working with Iranian market in the past, and any actually possible reinsurance subjects, please.
Yes, thank you for hosting me. اسمي man George Zaine. I work with General Reinsurance Services, which is a reinsurance broker, celebrating this year 25 years of existence. As well, I worked with a very important reinsurance company called the Mercantile and General Reinsurance Company. In the world, for your knowledge, at the time there was Swiss Re, Munich Re, and Mercantile and General. These were the three most important reinsurers in the world.
It was among the top three reinsurance
The
companies.
top three reinsurers.
Wow.
Yes, and then you mention company market, like for instance you say AXA, who work insurance and they do reinsurance as well. That is the company market. There is the professional reinsurance market and the company market. The company market, they deal with insurance and they have a reinsurance arm, they call it, and they do that reinsurance. At the time, I was what you call a professional reinsurer against this nomination, professional reinsurer against company reinsurers. I think it is clear.
Yeah.
So at the time, I was interviewed by a very respectable gentleman who was the deputy general manager of the Mercantile and General, who interviewed me. And one for the funny thing, one of the questions he asked me, a young man, he said to me, "How is your stomach?" I said, "Sir, I thought you were going to ask me, how is my English?
Your English.
Because
knowledge.
you are interviewing me for the job, and I should know English." By the way, ladies and gentlemen, you should know that the English language is the language of insurance. All the clauses, all the policies, they take their origin from London. They are made in English and then they are translated all around the world. And most of the people, when they use a clause, they say if there is a conflict, we return to the English text. In any case, I was engaged with this company because with his question, I understood that they will engage me, because he was asking about my capacity to eat, you know. And he explained to me, he said, you are going to become a professional reinsurer, and this means you are going to travel a lot in the world, and that means you will be invited to lunch, to dinner, and you have to honor the table which you are invited to. So this was the first surprise I had, but the next was really the tough training which the Mercantile and General gave me. Every time we had in London a conference, after the conference we had to sit for a test and show that we have digested what they have explained to us. And training took about 6 months. After that, I returned to Beirut, where we had our regional office for the MENA region. The MENA region included all the Arab countries, North Africa, i.e. Libya, Tunis, Algeria, and Morocco, Iran as well. So I started traveling after 2 years. I first had 2 years of in office working, and then I started traveling with my manager, who was called George Ayoub. He introduced me to the Iranian market, and he was a great friend of all the CEOs in the Iranian market. And for me, as a young man, this was a fantastic experience, because I was in the presence every time of important people, and I had to prove myself that I am a professional reinsurer. That's why I say to you that you cannot become a professional reinsurer just like that, you know. You have to read a lot, you have to go to references, and most importantly, when you don't understand a thing, you have to ask. If you don't ask and you let that thing uncleared, unexplained, then it will go with you for the rest of your life, not knowing what it is. So it is important every time you meet a clause or you meet any definition you don't understand, is to ask people. It is not a shame. One has always to ask, and knowledge comes like this, and by you will become a professional reinsurer. Because what does it mean at the end of the day? It means that if you are asked a question, people, ceding companies you are dealing with, expect you to give the answer, because you are the reinsurer. Exactly. And you take the major part of the risk. The ceding company has a retention. Above that retention, the risk goes to the reinsurers.
Exactly.
And that is a responsibility.
What happened to the General and Mercantile reinsurance?
Mercantile and General, after I worked 30 years with Mercantile and General, I was called later. I was called to London, and they explained to me that the company was being sold. Yeah. It was to be sold, and the offerer was Swiss Re. So
acquired by Swiss Re. General reinsurance company acquired by Swiss Re.
It was acquired by Swiss Re. Yes, and then because of this acquisition, it was a fashion, mergers and acquisition. Yeah. It was an acquisition. Yeah. The shareholders of Mercantile and General received an offer they could not refuse. Very good offer. So they sold to the Swiss Re, and the Swiss Re became number one in the UK market, really, because our company, Mercantile General, had the whole of the life business from all seeding companies in London.
In London.
So it was a very good acquisition for us. At that time, that here ends my story with the Mercantile in general. From here starts my story with GRS, because the office in Beirut, which we had for the region, Swiss Re did not want to keep it, so we had to close it. But I said to my colleagues, don't worry, we'll continue working together, and I established General Reinsurance Services and as a reinsurance broker.
You keep the name. You keep the name.
I nearly kept the name General.
General Reinsurance
Yes.
Services.
So this is it. Now, if you come to the professional of a broker, it's completely different from that of a professional reinsurer, because you have to convince seeding companies that you can render services, find reinsurer for them. So what happened is a complete change for me. I had to, instead of traveling to sell the Mercantile and General reinsurance alone, I was now traveling to sell Munich Re, Swiss Re, Mapfre, Score,
You
etc.
have more choices.
All the reinsurers. And for your information, today GRS works with over 100 reinsurers around the world, really, with different volumes. When before the sanctions, we were very actively dealing with BME Iran and BME Markazi as providers of reinsurance cover. So this is my story from the point of view of a professional reinsurer and broker. Now the difference between the two, as I told you, instead of selling or dealing for one reinsurer only, we became partners with many reinsurers, and for that purpose I traveled to Europe and everywhere to say, look, we are not out of business. We used to be Mercantile and General. Today we are GRS, and we will continue to have the same contacts in our area. We travel to Jordan, to Kuwait, to Iran, to etc., Iraq, and our personal relations will not be affected. We will be able to produce business for you, and of course everyone welcomed GRS, and this is how we have been working for 25 years.
Very good.
And as a matter of fact, the best example I can give is that the relations to which I was introduced by the Mercantile and General in Iran continue until today, with all the seeding companies who know us, even some new generation accepted to build personal relations. And let me emphasize, the personal relation is a most important factor in your career as a reinsurer. If you don't have, if you have the best reinsurers cover, if you have the best technology to offer, if you have the best training courses you want to offer, if you don't have good personal relationship with the people you are dealing with, they will receive you, and after you leave, they say, okay, we keep it aside for later.
Yeah.
But if you build a personal relationship and people like you, etc., etc., so then you are becoming, you deserve to be called a professional reinsurer.
Would you please tell us a very brief introduction to Lebanese insurance market? How many insurance companies or reinsurance company operate in your country?
Of course, the basis of departure of our business is from Lebanon. That's where our head office is. And in Lebanon, there are about 30 to 35 companies. I say 35 because there are some few small ones, really. But the Lebanese companies, the Lebanese market is a free market. All the companies are privately owned. The capital for a Lebanese company is around $10 million. $10 million, but today it's not much because there has been a very big devaluation in Lebanon. But there is a history of this devaluation because in 1975 the market had to live with the civil war. We had civil war in 1975, which lasted until 15 years, until 1990, when we started rebuilding Lebanon. At that time, the problem was the devaluation of the money. And the good thing about the Lebanese market is the quick decision and the adaptability. That means they adapt very quickly. And immediately they visited their reinsurers. In 1975, I was still with Mercantile General. They came to see us and we discussed, and they said it is the best solution is to have the treaties in US dollars. So all the treaties of the Lebanese companies, all of them have been changed to US dollars at the ruling rate of exchange at that time. So if the dollar went to up or down, it didn't make any difference because they were doing their accounts in US dollar and receiving claims in US dollar, etc. At the end of the day, the market developed and we have now a new devaluation. Devaluation which is very big, really, and has affected the whole market. This is a long story. I'm not going to go into it, but I can tell you that the Lebanese market today is around $1.5 billion of premium income, mostly distributed between motor business and health business. But the other classes also have a good proportion. So there is a good balance between the various classes of business. There is one important thing to mention, that the confidence of the international reinsurers in this market continued despite the recent devaluation, of the money, which because of the freedom of transfers, you can all balances that are due to the reinsurers are paid on time. There has been a problem recently, but it has been solved. Yeah.
I'm sure that you know about the famous explosion in the Beirut port.
Yeah.
Can you tell us
Yes.
briefly about that event?
Yeah, that is a very good question.
And actually the insurance
Yeah,
cases.
you know, Beirut is a very small city, as you may know,
Yeah.
and it is a very big business center, and it is full of very luxurious high-rise buildings, and they are all in the city center. You know, in London they call the business center the city. The city. We can call Beirut the city. The city because all the business, major companies, insurance companies, transport companies, the port of Beirut is in Beirut itself and very near all the city. So when this explosion took place, it affected the whole city to a diameter of about 10 kilometers. Imagine, even we received claims 10 kilometers away, the glass has fallen.
It should be the largest insurance claim.
This is the largest, it is a catastrophe. You can call it not a large claim, you have to call it a catastrophe. That's the case, really. And all the companies were at a loss to understand what's happening, really. So, first of all, it was dramatic because of the number of people that lost their life, the number of buildings, historic buildings that were very seriously damaged, heritage buildings, you know, and offices. When the dust went down, they could see clearly, and they started estimating the losses. And of course, you had a problem to solve. The problem was, is it covered under the normal fire policy, or is it covered under the war cover? Because you can buy war cover nowadays on land. Many people have policies on war land, and others have policies on long discussions took place, and at the end of the day, leading reinsurers. If you wish, I can explain what is a leading reinsurer. The leading reinsurer is the reinsurer who has generally the largest share. The largest share. That means if 40%, 25% on the bouquet of the treaties. And the decision lies with him generally, because the other followers, they follow his
agree the leading reinsurer.
Yeah, it's called leading reinsurer. But sometimes I remember in cases you can, as a ceding company, name the leading reinsurer even if he has a smaller share. 15% share we were leader, whilst Munich Re had 45%. But Mercantile General were the leader. But the decision can be taken by the ceding company. It says, my leader, my negotiations will take place with the leader. That's what the meaning of the leader. Negotiations take place with the leader.
And decision making on the claim, for example, deciding about the coverage or the exclusion, everything, falls
the
within
leader.
leader.
But now sometimes you have followers, they say we don't want to follow the leader. They can say so. It is not. But generally, the leader is a respectful name with a wide experience. Everybody would follow, and that's why it is called a leader.
Yeah.
A leader, and the leading names is Munich Re nowadays, Swiss Re, Score, AXA, Partner Re, Mapfre, and many others. I mean, I don't want to stop.
Lloyd's, for example.
I cannot remember all the names.
Lloyd's,
But
for example, Lloyd's.
Lloyd's,
yeah.
of course, the Lloyd's syndicates in general. So there was consortium, if you want, or consultation between the reinsurers to say that the economy has a catastrophe. The Lebanese economy are in the presence of a catastrophe. Those who hold fire policy or risks policies will receive compensation. And they invited the insurance companies to start paying the claims below $50,000. And the reinsurers provided funds to the companies to start paying these claims. Afterwards, they started dealing with the larger claims, and they required, the leading reinsurers required that international loss adjusters be appointed to survey the losses and the cause of the loss. All this has been done. And now as GRS, you know, you have to keep in mind that the city is small and that there is a concentration of risks in there.
Yeah.
You have over I don't know 2,000 claims
No.
spread over the 30 insurance company.
How much is the economic value of the loss, and how much is covered on
The economic
insurance?
value, it has
Roughly
been
speaking.
estimated
Yeah.
over $2 to $3 billion, but it is not all insured. The insured value is around 1 billion.
1 billion.
Yeah, what
Less than half
yeah,
of the-
but still now, because of you have the loss adjusters and international loss adjusters involved, etc. Estimations are coming, negotiations are being done. Maybe this figure will go down. You know, it will go down. But the most important lesson we have from this is that the international reinsurance market did not let the national insurance market of Lebanon, the international, did not leave the national alone. They came to their help and they said, we will support you to pay the claims resulting from this explosion. However, if the claim proves to be excluded from the policy, you as an insurance company to return the money to the reinsurer. Now, how can it be excluded? As you know, all policies, normal policies, exclude war operations. War, strikes, riots, commotion are excluded automatically. Now the court has to decide
Whether it is war or not.
whether it is war or not. But the international community of reinsurers did not let the national market alone.
Yeah.
They said to them, you need to rebuild your country, your city. You need to rebuild your city. This city needs money. They started transferring the money. And if the decision is it is included, you have to return the money. And the ceding companies, when they settle a claim to you, they make you sign that if it is war, you will
pay
return
back.
the company. Now, of course, this can be a problem because if the insured go bankrupt,
This is
how
the
can he return
problem with the reinsurer.
the insurers?
I think this is the exact meaning of reinsurance. That in the case of any, for example, catastrophic event, any natural catastrophe or man-made catastrophe, they should support you. They should be there to support you.
Thank you for this clarification. It is very important because we have other reinsurers which do not
Accept.
regional, let's call them reinsurers, who said we don't pay, we don't follow the leader, we are going to wait until
The
the court decision. So we said, I went to see them and we discussed, very long. I said, why you are doing this? The international market is paying. They said, our retrocessionaire is saying. What is a retrocessionaire? Retrocessionaire is the reinsurer of the reinsurance company. And some of them are at Lloyd's, maybe, probably, saying that we want to see the decision of the court first. So, but let me conclude on the subject of the explosion that it is a great negligence on the part of the state. That's one. As an act of negligence, it is covered by the normal fire policy, but it is not covered by the exclusion of war, strike, civil commotion. It is not. And we are waiting for this decision. But in the meantime, now about 40 to 50% of the damage has been repaired and companies are working again. And that's the purpose of insurance and reinsurance.
I'm very eager about knowing the main factors and main criteria that how we should choose our broker. As you, for example, in the future after sanction, I think we should choose our reinsurance broker. What are the main criteria to choose the right reinsurance broker? And generally speaking, what are the main roles and duties of the reinsurance broker?
Yeah, this is a very good question also. Being a broker, I'm not going to say that you should choose me because I have my own dimension. There are things that we can do, there are other things we cannot do. You have your economy is a sophisticated economy. Iranian is a big market, and it has most important assets in its petrochemical infrastructure. This you call it petrochemical.
Yeah.
This needs large brokers, aviation brokers. If you ask me to do, for instance, aviation business, I can do a small proportion. But you have brokers who are specialized in aviation business. That is the criteria which should guide you. Who is the expert in which branch, in which domain, and then you can safely deal and transact business with these brokers. In general, in London, I mean. This needs certainly the lifting of the sanctions, of course.
Okay. Thank you for accepting our invitation to be a guest, and we hope that you can join us in the future. And
I hope to be able to be back to Iran where I have so many friendships, and I cherish. I cannot name anybody because it would be unjust to forget names. Everyone always received me with a lot of affection and respect, and I have the same respect towards them. Love to all of you.
Tehran and Beirut are very close.
Yes.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think we can work together in the future, in the near future, inshallah.
I hope so. I hope so. Once the market is open, we have continue. This is a bit. You continue. Once the market is back, we hope to continue and to expand our services. We at GRS never stopped coming despite the sanctions. Despite the sanctions. And believe me, you ask me which broker to deal with, the broker who does his job properly. When we had Kermanshah earthquake, when you had the floods, the famous floods recently, we at GRS immediately checked if the MDPs.
Okay. If you want to add anything, you can conclude the meeting.
I think I made my conclusion when I said how intimate my relation is with the market,
Thank you.
and how much I appreciate it, and that's why I hope not to lose it, because this visit is not to do business, it's to maintain our relations. I hope not to lose these relations, and if God gives me health and strength, despite my age, etc., I will continue coming.
Thank you for your coming and accepting us, and hope to work with you in the future. And we appreciate your presence even during sanction. And
Thank you so
we
much.
hope to see you.
And let me
inshallah,
wish
after.
all the new generation of young reinsurers to follow the same pace we followed as seniors, by reading, asking questions, being curious.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.